Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, it doesn't seem to have a day go by without hearing about some hack attack on the news. Why can we not stay one step ahead of the hackers? We'll be talking to an international expert next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team. And the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I know it's frustrating to you, it's frustrating to everyone. What can we do to stop hackers? Every single day there's another hack attack on the news, another warning that all of our social security numbers are out there on the dark web. It's got to be incredibly frustrating, and no one is more frustrated than my next guest, Joey Rachid.
Yes.
He is a Global Chief Information Security Officer. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And we're spending billions and billions of dollars as a nation, both publicly and privately. So why can we not stay one step ahead of the hackers?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is just a number of odds, right? So you have to be 100% right all the time. The adversary or the hacker only needs to be right 1% of the time. And so naturally the odds are against us. But what we can do is take those basic fundamental cybersecurity hygiene type measures, such as making sure you're not repeating your passwords for multiple sites or even using password type managers, using things like multi-factor authentication, making sure that you're not clicking on those emails or falling for those text messages that come to you claiming to have a reward for you or what have you. It's just that it's a sense of urgency that they're playing upon, and frankly some gullibility in a lot of people that we end up falling for some of these mistakes.
And I know I get these emails, your Washington Federal account has been hacked,
Exactly.
and maybe you don't even have a Washington Federal account, and those are obvious. But when it comes from your own bank and they're kind of spoofing the bank,
Yes.
I mean, have you ever been tricked into clicking on one of those links, or how does you as a cyber expert protect yourself?
Yeah, so what I do, if I get anything that looks like it's coming from my bank or an institution that I do business with, I don't click on the link in the email. I go to the site that I know is valid from my bookmarks or what have you, and then I go in there and then I read the message, because most entities will send you a message saying, hey, you have a message to read, right? So then go to the platform that you know is safe and legitimate, and then go in there and read it versus clicking the link and falling for it. It's also those common text messages that we get nowadays is that, you have a USPS package on hold, we can't deliver it, click this link. People sometimes click for it, it's like, oh, I want my package, right? People want their mail, they want something that maybe they've been anticipating, but those things are ways to get people to fall for the trick. And then people then go a little bit further to enter their personal information, and then there you go.
Sure.
The attackers got what they want.
And I know in many cases, I remember the Target hack a few years ago, and famously, Target's system was pretty buttoned down, but they had a vendor that was plugging into their system. And is that a common thing, that the hacker will go after the vendors?
Yes. So the attackers will know, and they'll do their research as to who are the partners of maybe the large company that they want to go after. And then they look at the soft targets. So the smaller companies that support the larger companies that perhaps they don't have as secure of an infrastructure or a security team. And so they'll go after them. maybe that third party has information that they're seeking. Law firms are a big target because they do a lot of confidential information or confidential transactions with large entities. And they'll go after them, or they'll look for some of those suppliers or partners, or maybe they have technology integrations and try to leverage what we call the softer target than the larger entity that probably has a very robust security program and security team and controls in place.
Sure, and I have one of those services where I can just lock my credit. Like nobody can apply, and then if I do apply for a credit card, I'm opening it for 5 minutes, allowing them to do a credit check and then closing it again. Is that something you recommend?
Yes, of course. Any of the measures that you can put in place that make it harder for an attacker or would-be fraudster to take your identity, use your information, open up an account is always the best. Attackers are going to look for the path of least resistance. And if you're the person who has that multi-factor authentication on your account, you have the credit lock and things like that, they're just going to move on to the next citizen who doesn't have those things and accomplish their goal. Those are the things that they look to do, and they don't want to spend a lot of time trying to get into the normal person's account. Now, if it is a targeted attack, if you're someone that they specifically want to go after, that's a little bit different. They'll spend more time. But for most of us, we're not people of interest. We're just, opportunistic. So don't be that opportunistic victim.
And let's talk a little bit about ransomware attacks, because that's become very popular these days. It seems like we will hear about a hospital system that suddenly has to pay this ransom because it's a matter of life and death. When you're talking to people, do you advise them to pay the ransom?
Well, listen, that is a business decision. And I would advise companies to proactively and in advance of any sort of attack, talk with the board, talk with the executive leadership as to what is your stance on ransomware. Would you pay it in certain circumstances or would you not? Some companies decide that it's an ethical matter and they won't pay it. But then some other companies decide, listen, as long as we check to make sure that the other party isn't on any restricted lists, that they may pay it because it's a business decision. If the business is losing tens of $millions a day and the ransom and there's ROI or it makes sense and to pay it, then some companies do that. Again, but there's no right or wrong answer. I would say it really depends on the situation and the company and the values.
And if you pay it, does it make you more likely to be a victim of a second ransomware attack because now they know you're good for it?
Well, interestingly enough, I was talking about this with a colleague who's not in the cybersecurity industry, and I said, the studies and the records show that there is a level of honesty within the ransomware entities. And what I mean by that is more times than not, the person who's holding your ransomware, the entity, will actually do what they say they're going to do if you pay them. That's kind of an odd thing, right? It's like a trustworthy criminal.
Right.
But that's the fact. And you have to realize is that if they're not trustworthy, then people won't pay because then they will fear the thing that you just mentioned is that, they're just going to come back for more.
Right.
And, there are some cases where that does happen, but I think by and large, the ransom do what they actually say they're going to do and don't try to take you again.
Sure. He's also a very popular guest on different podcasts around the country. We're going to show some video of you on a podcast. Talk about the topics that you're usually invited to speak on. Yeah,
for this topic, we were talking about leadership and how I, as a leader, being a military veteran, transition into the corporate world, how I leveraged my young military career to transition and instill those leadership values into teams and ensuring that teams that I help lead have purpose, mission, vision, and values. I think everyone on this earth wants to have a sense of purpose. And so when I go into an organization and take over a team or build a team, I want to make sure that our team members also have that sense of purpose and they understand that what they're doing aligns to corporate objectives or helping protect the company or when we're serving in the Department of Defense, helping protect the warfighter. And people really align to that. People want to feel that sense.
Sure, sure. And since you opened the door, a proud Marine and served under 2 presidents.
That's correct.
Describe your role with the presidents.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. That's a great question. So I had the privilege and honor of serving as not only a United States Marine, but also being selected to serve at Marine One Helicopter Squadron, which most people know as the Presidential Helicopter Squadron. And so I served there for 2 presidents of the United States, President Clinton and President Bush. And the easiest way to say is, I was one of those Marines at the bottom of the helicopter, saluting the president. I did that for about a year, and then after that, I got into leading the anti-terrorism and force protection, also known as physical security department for Marine One or Presidential Helicopter Squadron. And so I really enjoyed my time in service.
Wow. And you were telling me off camera that the presidents can kind of let their hair down a little bit when the cameras aren't staring at them.
Yes, as you can imagine, and everyone knows, that being the President of the United States is a very stressful job, but there are certain locations and certain places where sometimes you get to engage with the first family on a very personal basis, and you get to see that other side of the president, the first lady, and their children and things like that. So that is something that I do look back on and really thankful for having to experience.
Outstanding. Well, you've had a remarkable career. We're almost out of time, so look into the camera on the left and give some final thoughts. What do you want the takeaway to be?
I would just say, have smart cyber hygiene. Don't fall victim of the silly things that they'll send you to try to create a sense of urgency. I would like to say that, things will get better with regards to cybersecurity and that, but the trend is that over the past several years, it's only gotten more and more increasing. And with the introduction of artificial intelligence, I think things are only getting faster and quicker. So be smart. Think twice about clicking those links, enable MFA, get maybe a password manager to help you out so that you don't have to remember tons of passwords. You can have unique passwords like that. And also for all the leaders out there, have a set of values that you really stick by in your North Star, so that your teams can see that and that you can lead by and stick close to. So.
Outstanding. You've been an amazing guest. We're going to leave you with his LinkedIn page. We're going to put it right up there on the screen. Joey Rachid, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You bet.
Pleasure.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.